Hey everyone, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger bringing you the one and only keto without the crazy. And since I'm trying to get back in the saddle after being gone for a while, I thought maybe it was time to reintroduce myself and remind you, or maybe tell you for the first time, who I am, what I do, how I got into keto, and most important, what keto without the crazy is. And that part of today's video was inspired by a couple of clients with whom I've had consultations recently. So we'll get to that in a minute. So I am a keto nutrition specialist. I am a certified nutrition specialist, which is CNS, and that is a master's level designation. It's not the same as a registered dietitian, so I'm not an RD, but I do have a master's degree in human nutrition. And I contributed to the ketogenic training curriculum that the American Nutrition Association uses to train other nutritionists in how to apply the ketogenic diet. And for a couple of years, I served on the committee that writes the board exam that certifies the CNSs. And I've written 3 books about ketogenic diets. My first book was called The Alzheimer's Antidote, which is about using a low carb or ketogenic diet for memory loss and cognitive impairment. And if you don't know why a keto nutritionist would write a book about Alzheimer's, it's because they regularly refer to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain. And I actually have a whole video all about that. I'll put a link to it in the notes. My second book was The Stall Slayer, so Alzheimer's Antidote, Stall Slayer. I'm an alliteration girl. So The Stall Slayer is all about breaking those dreaded, hated fat loss stalls on low carb and keto diets. And book number 3 was co-written with none other than keto OG Eric Westman from Duke University. And book number 4 is in the works, but that's all about thyroid. That's not a keto book, but I'm currently brainstorming the outline for book number 5, which will be a keto book. Anyway, I've written a couple of books about keto, and I've spoken at lots of conferences. Some of you may have seen me at, like Low Carb Denver. Where else have I spoken? Lots of places that are not coming to mind at the moment. I think I spoke at the Low Carb USA in San Diego once. I've spoken in Canada a few times. Oh, Ancestral Health Symposium in the Netherlands. Anyway, I've been around the keto world a little bit. And I started keto long before anyone really called it keto or ketogenic. It was really low carb back in the day. I first found out about this in the late 1990s. Some of you probably weren't even born then. Oh my goodness, holy cow. Right. Anyway, I found out about low carb and started low carb through the Atkins diet. And I actually did a video celebrating the late great Dr. Atkins and the Atkins diet. I'll put a link to that in the notes as well. But that's how I got started in this. And when I got started in this, and by the way, I started keto because I used to be heavier. I did not have diabetes, but my mother had very poorly controlled type 2 diabetes. Most of my family is or was obese. My mother also had a couple of minor or mini strokes. We have cancer in the family. So I have no doubt that if I hadn't found the low carb way of eating when I did, I would either have many of the metabolic syndrome type things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. I'd probably have PCOS. If I hadn't found low carb, I would either have those or be well on my way to developing them. But I found low carb, and that's just what I've been doing now for the last, I don't know how many years, decades at this point, but I did not stick to it the first time I found out about it. So if you are someone who has started and stopped, started and stopped, and started and stopped again, welcome to my club. I'll show you the secret handshake some other time. I think it's actually pretty rare that somebody learns about this and just does it, not the first time, and they never look back. So I know what it's like to lose weight on keto. I know what it's like to kind of have it be a little bit bumpy and on and off until you actually really do stick with it for the long term. I've been through all of that. I also kind of know what it's like to upend your whole world of thinking about food. I mean, I grew up in the low fat era and the egg yolks are going to kill you era and the red meat's going to kill you era. And now I eat plenty of that stuff. So I've been through it all. And I've been at this long enough that when I was new to keto, if I'm remembering correctly, Facebook did not exist. I know Reddit and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube did not exist. So social media as we know it today did not exist. The internet existed. Yes, I'm not that old. Well, I know some of you out there, I love you. So the internet was a thing, but what there was at the time were these old school message boards and these chat boards. And so you could learn about low carb, but there was none of the sea, the ocean of information that there is now about keto. And that ocean of information is a blessing and a curse. It is so wonderful that it is so easy to find information about this now. And you can find someone with any style. Some people hate the way I deliver information. Great. Thank goodness there's only 4 million other people talking about keto on YouTube and other social media, right? So if you don't like me, well, then I don't know why you're still watching, but you can find someone whose tone, whose delivery style, whose message does resonate. So whatever your style, whatever your preference, you can probably find someone who feels like a good fit for you and who you want to learn from. So this is wonderful. And there's so much more research being done and people talking about the research. This is fabulous. I could never have imagined this scene, if you will, when I was brand new to this. But the drawback is that there's a ton of information, but that means that there is a ton of confusing and conflicting information. And from highly credentialed professionals. You can have an MD saying one thing about keto and this other MD says something very different. Well, they're not stupid people. They can't both be right, or can they? Stick a pin in that, we'll come back. Maybe people saying very different things can be right in different circumstances. All right, I'm sticking a pin so I don't forget. So there was much less confusion when I was brand new. At that time, most people just read the Atkins book, followed the plan as he wrote it, and life was grand, smooth sailing. Or there was also the book Protein Power by Dr. Michael and Dr. Mary Dan Eads, another perennial classic of the low carb world, Protein Power in the mid-90s. You could read these books and do great. There was very, very little emphasis on measuring ketones, on tracking food. Now, there were no apps either. There were no smartphones when I started keto or low carb when I was brand new to this. Smartphones did not exist. There were no apps. So you couldn't track your carb intake or your calorie intake or your steps or whatever. Maybe they had old school pedometers, but there were no watches and rings and bits that you could track all this stuff. And so the message at that time was very straightforward and simple. And it has become muddied and muddled and clouded in all these years. And it is doing a huge disservice to people who really need this. And there's so many things that I want to talk about, and I didn't make notes, which is dangerous because then it's going to be scattered all over the place, but I didn't want to make notes because I want you to know that this is really coming from my heart. So, and I say this all the time when I don't have notes, all my videos come from my heart, but the danger here is that I will forget to say something really important. Before I forget to say this, if you feel overwhelmed and confused and like downright paralyzed with overwhelm and we call it paralysis by analysis. You've heard so many different things from so many different people that you don't even know what to do past the donuts. I'm calling out for pizza with the crust, right? if you are wondering, where are the sane, normal people in keto? Where are the people who just want to eat low carb food and go enjoy their life? Where are the people who don't want to track and weigh and measure everything and turn themselves into some kind of cyborg with a bajillion different devices and trackers? Where are those people? Where is keto without the crazy? You just found it. Welcome. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, and yes, I have the Oura ring, so I don't think I'm a cyborg with just the Oura ring, right? There's no other like wearable things on me right now. So when I said that this video was inspired by some consultations I've had with a few clients recently, and I emphasize few, meaning multiple, because if it was just one person, I probably wouldn't have thought to do this. But something happened with a few clients recently that I could not help but do this video. So you can't do everything. You can't do all the things, as the kids say these days, or people my age say these days. You can't do all the things, because here's what happens when you try. And this is just some examples. Dr. So-and-so says blueberries prevent Alzheimer's, but when I eat blueberries, my blood sugar spikes. And this doctor says that blood sugar spikes are really bad for you. And this doctor, this researcher, says that I need tons and tons of fiber for my gut biome and my gut and the and the diversity. But when I eat more fiber, I feel really bloated and gassy, and I get more constipated. Isn't fiber supposed to get you moving? How come it makes me more constipated? Or that doctor or that researcher says you need tons and tons of greens. You need the folate. You need the vitamins. You need just green. The more green, the better. But then I maybe have a history of kidney stones, but that doctor says that greens cause, they're too high on oxalates and I can't have them. So, or, this doctor said fruit is really good for you. Fruit, the more the merrier. But again, fruit spikes my blood sugar. You can't do everything because there's so many opposing or conflicting things. And I've had a few clients recently who were trying to do everything. And kudos to them. They were very dedicated to their health, very dedicated to maintaining normal, healthy blood sugar and insulin, very dedicated to doing everything they could to potentially prevent cognitive decline. And I always emphasize potentially prevent, because even having written a book about Alzheimer's, I don't know that we can prevent it. I think we can. I believe we can, but I can't say that definitively, so I say potentially prevent. That's the writer in me. So these people are very dedicated, going above and beyond, pulling all the levers. And yet, if that was working, if they felt well, if they felt vibrant, if they were happy with their health or just how they overall felt, why were they having a consultation with me? No one has ever contacted me to say, hey, Amy, I'd like to pay you for a private session. I'd like to pay for your time because I just feel so great and everything's perfect and I just want to tell you. 0 people in at least 12 years as a professional keto nutritionist, 0 people have contacted me for that purpose. Amy, I feel so great. I'm in the best health I've ever been. Everything I do, everything I eat or don't eat is part of my protocol and it's perfect and I just can't wait to share the love with you. 0 people. So here these people were doing all of that, putting enormous effort, not just financial effort, buying fancy food or buying all their own stuff, whatever, time, cooking, exercising, fasting, sauna, whatever they were doing, and emotional effort, mental time and energy into this, making keto or carnivore or whatever almost a full-time job. For sure, a full-time mental and emotional job. And it wasn't working. They had a list of issues, a whole page long. So, and here's the thing. I'm coming back to the pin that I stuck, at least I remember to. When I say that these opposing things can't be right, they can, depending on your situation. So if you hear the doctor or PhD researcher so-and-so said one thing, but this equally credentialed other person said something very different, they can absolutely both be right for somebody else. The advice they are giving, what they are telling someone to do or to not do, might make perfect sense and be perfectly appropriate for one person's scenario, but completely inappropriate for someone else's. For example, like this is just a little example, I've had clients for whom I recommended increasing their carb intake, not to 200 or 300 grams a day, but if they were doing ultra strict keto, maybe have 50 grams, maybe have 75 or 80 grams of carbs, which is still a very, very low carb diet. It's maybe not ultra ketogenic. For some people it is. But anyway, the point is, ultra strict keto is phenomenally therapeutic for some cases. Not everybody needs to eat that way. And in fact, not everybody is going to feel their best doing so. Some people will actually feel better with a little more carbs. So ultra strict medical therapeutic keto is not wrong. Eating a little bit more carbs is not wrong. They are both perfectly appropriate for different scenarios. We could say the same thing about carnivore. We could say the same thing about people who are fear-mongering and making you absolutely terrified of tomatoes and zucchini and eggplant and whatever other foods may have lectins in them, or oxalates like spinach or whatever. And I've had some clients where she was saying all the different things she avoids and why, and some of it was, well, that's high in oxalate, this is high in, this has this chemical, or compound. Chemical is too abstract a word, but she was avoiding certain foods because of reasons that she heard from experts. And I kind of stopped and asked her, do you know anyone in your family or friend group, just anybody that you know, who eats spinach and is healthy and doesn't have problems with oxalates or kidney stones? And of course she said, well, yeah. Do you know anyone who eats fruit or who eats potatoes or who eats rice and is lean and healthy and doesn't have diabetes and doesn't have any medical problems? Well, yeah. Now, does that mean that everyone, that all of us can eat fruit or eat lots of fruit or eat rice or lots of rice or what have you? No. Every bit of advice is appropriate for somebody. But just because Dr. PhD so-and-so says something doesn't mean it's appropriate for you. And what I saw with these clients was that they were trying to implement all of the advice, but you can't. You literally can't. You can't eat the blueberries that this doctor says you must eat when that doctor says blueberries are poisonous because of X compound in them. It is crazy making. It is crazy making. And when I had the consultations with these people, and I do it over Zoom unless the rare occasion when I can meet somebody in person, I can feel the anxiety radiating out at me from the screen, right? And it's entirely virtual. I'm not with them in person, and I can feel the tension hitting me. It's palpable. And that is the unfortunate result of so many people being in this field and muddying the waters. And I that's not the right way to say it, because like I said, everybody's correct for somebody. But it's when you start to just automatically assume that everybody is correct for you that you start to get in trouble. And keto or carnivore, or whatever flavor of carbohydrate restriction you do, this is supposed to make your life better. It's supposed to make you healthier physically, but also mentally, emotionally, psychologically. There's a ton of fascinating research being done right now on keto for mental health. So what's going on when you're doing this amazing diet that everybody celebrates and everybody says is so great, and you feel miserable? Whether physically you're not getting the results that everybody promised and everybody totally said you would get. And what happens? Maybe you actually feel worse mentally and emotionally. Maybe you feel paralyzed. You're terrified to go to a restaurant because, oh my God, they might use canola oil. Maybe their coffee isn't organic. Oh my God. You know, again, I just cannot emphasize this enough. Keto, low carb, carnivore is supposed to enhance your life, not become a chore, not become a burden, not become a full-time job, certainly, not become something that weighs on you heavily all day. And when I say keto without the crazy, I mostly am referring to keto or low carb the way it was when I was new to it, when it was very simple and straightforward, and we weren't bombarded by a million different conflicting messages. And I have to be clear, I am not saying that there is never a need to weigh and measure your food or track things. There is, and I think I did a video about that. I'll put a link in the notes, something about, what if you do need to micromanage keto? Because you might. If you have epilepsy, if you have migraines, if you're using keto as an adjunct therapy for cancer treatment with your medical team, of course, nobody sue me. Like, if your keto might have to be a much stricter, much more specific type of keto than somebody whose main goal is weight loss, or even improving or reversing their type 2 diabetes. So there absolutely may come a time and place where dealing with all the numbers is appropriate, and tracking and weighing and measuring and all that stuff. But unless you need to do that, and most people don't, it just adds a layer of complexity that doesn't need to be there. And all this fear-mongering about food that was never there. Again, when I was new, I don't think, like in the Atkins book, I don't think the word macro appears. I don't even know if he said the word macronutrient. If he did, he was probably just saying there are 3 main macronutrients: protein, fat, and carbohydrate. I don't even think he did that. Nobody talked about macros. Nobody talked about percentages. It was all about keeping the carbohydrate low, period. And MCT oil, I don't even think existed at the time, or if it did, you couldn't buy it at the supermarket. You probably had to be enrolled in a study, because it was something really specialized, and it just wasn't available in normal stores. There were no blood ketone meters. There were no breath ketone meters. They did have the urine strips. Those did exist at the time. Nobody was talking about aiming for any specific level of ketosis, any specific number. And again, there's a time and a place where that might matter. For a lot of people, it doesn't. For a lot of what people are trying to accomplish by way of following a low carb or keto diet, most of that stuff doesn't matter. There are cases where it does. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm just throwing all this out and saying all you need to do is keep your carbs low. Some people, that is all you need to do. And if you feel completely overwhelmed and confused and boxed in and paralyzed, then you're probably already keeping your carbs really low. So I'm not going to say just keep your carbs low. But what you might want to do is actually expand your diet, open it up a little. And I wasn't even going to talk about that, so I don't really want to go there yet, maybe some other video, but you have to ask yourself that. If, like these clients I had that inspired this topic, if you are already following all the expert advice you possibly can and keep your sanity, and you're kind of on the edge of losing that sanity, then ask yourself, is it working? Nobody works that hard for no reason. So you are probably trying to lose weight, reverse a medical problem or health problem, or improve a problem if it's something that can't be completely reversed. You are eating this way for a reason. And if that reason is not being realized, if you're not accomplishing that, or you're not confident that you're on your way to accomplishing it, then what are you doing? Then what you're doing is not working. Avoiding everything you're avoiding isn't helping. Eating the special miracle superfoods and drinking all the special potions you're drinking isn't helping. Isn't there that saying, when you're in a hole, the first rule is stop digging? You're already working so hard, it's not working. It's not getting you where you want to go. You've got to change something. And you've got to have the courage to change it. You've got to give yourself permission to change it. I even said, like, when I had a consultation, I tried to be gentle with these people, because I could feel their terror. I could feel they were holding on so tight to their beloved rules, their beloved food dictates, that I had to actually say, are you willing to give yourself permission to let go of some of that? Maybe not overnight and maybe not all at once, but are you even willing to entertain the idea of backing off a little bit and relaxing a little bit? Because you're already not relaxed at all. You've already got everything dialed up to the millionth degree, and it ain't working. So what is the harm in trying something else? And when I say try something else, I'm never telling people to like completely abandon low carb at all, but to just change a little bit of what they're doing. And let me just pause to make sure I'm not forgetting anything critical. I guess, again, I am absolutely acknowledging that some people do have a problem with oxalates. Some people, what can I say? Some people maybe do need to avoid even small amounts of berries or fruit or something like that. Some people do best on a carnivore diet with no plants at all. And some people actually feel better with more vegetables in their diet. Every piece of advice that we hear out there is appropriate for someone. And I distinctly remember saying this to one of my clients. Something that was appropriate for you at one point might not be appropriate anymore. Let's say you are someone who's lost 50 pounds on keto, or what, 20, 22, 24 kilos, whatever that is. Or let's say you've lost 100 pounds, 50 something kilos. Or let's say 5 years ago, your hemoglobin A1C was, 10.2 or 8.6. Like you had pretty bad type 2 diabetes, and now your A1C is 5.0 and you've lost 50 pounds. The dietary approach that was absolutely perfect for you 50 pounds ago, 100 pounds ago, 4 or 5 A1C percentage points ago, might not be what is going to work best for you now. So was that advice, was that approach bad? Was it wrong? No. It was the exact right thing for you back then. That doesn't mean it's the exact right thing now. And I see that with clients a lot too, where they'll come and say, I've been doing this and it was so great, it was so great, it was going so well, but ... Or it was going so well until now, ... and I'm stuck. Well, okay, then I guess we need to change something, right? So my idea of keto without the crazy is really just keeping the carbs very low and just eating foods that are very low in carbs, but without measuring anything, without counting anything, without being afraid to eat things like the nightshade vegetables, the tomatoes, peppers, eggplant. Zucchini a nightshade? I don't think it is. No, zucchini's a squash. So that stuff, or not putting 3 tablespoons of butter and coconut oil in it because someone said you should. Not worrying about things like phytates and lectins and goitrogens and oxalates. Just eating a very low carb diet, the way we all kind of did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But I say that, again, I really want to emphasize here that I acknowledge there are some people who have problems with those foods. But I also see a lot of people avoiding a lot of those foods when they don't need to be. Again, have you ever met anyone, or do you know of anyone? Is there a human being on the planet? Are there probably a few million or a few billion people on the planet who can eat potatoes and rice and bread, heaven help us, and they're not diabetic and they're lean and healthy? Yeah. Are there lots of people who eat broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and they don't have thyroid problems? They don't develop goiter, right? Yeah. Are there people who eat spinach and Swiss chard and cocoa, I think, is high in oxalates, right? And almonds. Are there people who eat these foods and they're healthy and lean and fit and they don't have any medical problems? They're not diabetic? Yes. So I think there are a lot of people overly restricting on keto. And I don't necessarily mean carbs. If you want to keep your carb intake ultra low because you feel best that way, fine. But I think there are some people who probably could have much more variety in their diet than they currently have because they have been made afraid of these other foods. And I did a video, one of probably my favorite videos of my whole last however many years on this channel. It's called something like Keto Influencers Make You Flipping Terrified of Food. I'll put a link in the notes. If you like this sort of down-to-earth talk and calming of the fear and the abject terror about food, I really encourage you to watch that video. I think you'll love it. But getting back to this, I see people avoiding a lot of foods that they probably don't need to avoid. Do some people need to avoid them? Yes, but not everybody. And if somebody was happy avoiding them, great, no problem. If you just don't want to eat tomatoes, don't eat tomatoes. If you don't want to use sunflower oil salad dressing, don't use it. But again, these people are coming to me because they're not feeling their best. They're not getting the results they want. So, all right, you're already avoiding those foods and it's not helping you in any way. So it's just, I guess I just wish that more people knew how simple and straightforward keto can be when you let it be. And I think that that's probably where everybody should start, with like a good old-fashioned Atkins diet. Or if that's too old school for you, check out my book, End Your Carb Confusion, the book I wrote with Dr. Eric Westman, We have a food list in there that is fairly liberal in terms of the variety it allows, but it does keep the total carbohydrate very low. But you can eat a whole bunch of different vegetables and stuff like that. Um, that alone, that basic, super simple, basic foundational approach is going to get most people pretty far. It might not get you all the way. Maybe then you will discover, oh, I'm sensitive to X. Let me take that out. Or I think X is causing me a problem. Or let me just see. Let me do an experiment with this thing. But now I lost my train of thought. I think you should start with the biggest movers. Start with the biggest things that are going to have the biggest impact, which is just keeping your carbs low, and tinker from there. See how far that gets you, and then play around with these other aspects if you need to. And some of you like to experiment for fun just because you want to, and that's perfectly acceptable too. I mean, you do you, boo, as they say. But I wonder sometimes if, people are always saying, how do I get my mother to do keto? How do I get my uncle to do keto? My best friend is 60 pounds overweight. How do I get him to do keto? The answer is A, you don't. You can never convince anyone of anything. You need to just be the example. Feel so good, look so good that they come to you begging to know your secret, right? Like, you be the shining, literally like radiant example. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, I gotta find out what your secret is. But I also think that some people who maybe deep down know they could benefit from keto won't do it because they're looking at keto with the crazy. Not only do you have to stop eating, like, probably what are a lot of your favorite foods? I don't know, bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, pretzels, chips, candy, cookies, donuts, ice cream, the whole 9 yards. Not only do you have to give all that up, but you also can't have salad dressing from the supermarket anymore because the soybean oil will kill you. And you can't have nuts because the omega-6 will also kill you. And you can't have spinach because the oxalates will kill you. You can't have almonds because the oxalates will kill you, but you weren't having them anyway because the omega-6 already killed you. And you can't eat whatever else. The lectins come to mind again. I don't need to beat the dead horse. So, okay, not only you have to give up all those favorite carby foods, but now you can't eat all of these low carb foods that people were eating just fine in the Atkins day. Can't have those. And you have to fast. So probably 3 days a week, you're just not going to eat at all. And you can't, you have to drink your coffee black because cream breaks a fast, which no, it doesn't in my opinion, but that's fine. Or like artificial sweeteners will kill you, so you can't have those. And you better take on a second or third job to afford that infrared sauna that you have to have installed in your house. And you better, I don't know what, get some kind of covering for your backyard so that you can go out there and sunbathe naked because you have to get vitamin D from the sun and you have to get it all over your skin at certain times of day. And don't forget the sprinting. I hope you live near a hill because you better be doing some hill sprints. I mean, what? Can we just please do keto without the crazy? Can we just please do that for 5 minutes? This is what I have seen in the evolution of keto, or again, low carb as it was called back when I was brand new to it, circa 1999. And again, it is a joy and a thrill to see how far it has come in that time. The amount of research that has been done, the blessing part of social media, how this message has spread to so many people for whom it has literally been life-changing. Children now that are with epilepsy that are seizure-free for years. People who no longer need to inject themselves with insulin for type 2 diabetes. Women who have conceived babies naturally after being diagnosed with PCOS. People with chronic migraine who were, debilitated and couldn't work, now out and about living their lives. So it is absolutely a joy to see that. But it kind of breaks my heart a little to see how confusing the message has become and overwhelming it has become when it was so simple and uncomplicated when I got started. So I will wrap this up by saying that that is why I have this channel. That's why I do what I do. It's why I provide consultations. If you feel like you fit the description of what I just described, some of these clients who were, again, pulling those 46 levers and still not getting anywhere, I am available for consultations. There is information in the notes. This is what I enjoy doing. Giving people clarity, giving them calm, helping restore a little bit of calm around food. I don't agree that food is fuel. You should only eat to live. And yeah, it is. Food is fuel, but it's not only fuel. It is delicious. It does give us pleasure. It does give us joy. Certain specific foods can represent our cultural heritage, our traditions. There's so much more to food, and I hate to see people turning it into this clinical calculus experiment that is just cloaked in fear and punishment and restriction. Fear, punishment, and restriction. There's not a fourth word. So I'm gonna do my best to get back to making videos regularly. I know I said that last time and then I didn't. I'm sorry. Hopefully this one sort of broke the seal, so to speak, and I will get back to doing it. But if you've been looking for some calm and some simplicity and some sanity, there's a reason I call it keto without the crazy. So until next time, thank you for watching if you've made it this far. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss more Keto Without the Crazy in the future. And feel free to, binge watch the couple of 100 videos I already have in here. And until next time, keep the crazy out of your keto.